Salama Abada and OCO everyone. Today's episode is entitled Find Another Food. This one evolved. This came from obviously another experience of mine. And I'm quite sure there's more than just me that can relate to witnessing or being in a position where people are treating you as if you are less than. And they proceed in a way as if you've never seen or witnessed it play out before. And that is what I've experienced. I've been through so much trauma to the point that the signs are repetitive. I can easily see it in others now. So therefore, none of my trauma shall repeat itself. The more aware you become, the more of a shield is built to strengthen and protect you, just not physically, psychologically, energetically, just overall. Overseeing. It's like the armor of Yah is what I call it. And I'm grateful to have that now. Because then, it was then I didn't have that protection and suffered the repercussions of not knowing. The ignorance of bliss, although there was no bliss for me. I've witnessed and experienced and felt the blowback of financial abuse, verbal, physical, all that, due to not having the proper guidance, not having the warning signs, not having the testimonies, not having the wisdom that was passed down. It was meant for me to experience what I've experienced because I'm the barrier, I'm the light barrier, I'm the one that will be passing down the knowledge and the guidance. Everything that I've lacked that I should have had, I've gained through experience, enough for me to pass it down. If I decided to have a generation that comes after me, or just my audience, my tribe, who I connect with along the way, along my journey, what I say, what I do shall be beneficial beyond me. And that's what makes me evolved and not the fool anymore. I had recently came across the same tactics, just in a different soul, trying to lynch off my creativity and try to transmute it as if it's theirs all along. And it's like, that's not going to work. Someone attempted and succeeded for a while until I woken up. And here you are, being repetitive unknowingly, and it didn't work this time. The ball is in my court and will forever be now. I've removed a lot of people from my life that are parasites. Anyone who come across me with a pure soul, a pure mind, just purity within their existence overall, shall benefit from the wisdom that I spew out. As I always say, I didn't go through hardships, trials, and tribulations for the fun of it, for the vanity of it. It was meant to get someone else through. It was meant to be a survival guide along the way for those who bear witness. And that's what it shall be. You know what? As my mind begins to process everything that I'm saying, I'm coming to grips like everything that I didn't want it to do, was a need rather than a want anyway. Therefore, it shall proceed, it shall be a seed planted in order to grow and blossom into what is designed and meant within alignment to become. I'm just within a gratitude, within embracing, and I may say that a lot because what's repetitive purely shall grow, purely just based off who you are at your core. And once again, that that is what makes me no longer the fool. I am the wise one. I've learned the lessons I've needed to learn in order to evolve. It's just not a trend for me. I'm just not saying, oh, I'm evolving because the majority may seem like they're on that journey of evolving. It's a difference when you have the scars, when you have the proof, when you have the testimony, when you have the documentation to progress rather than dwell in that oppression that I will no longer be bound through suppression at all. It is through my expression that I've evolved from that aspect as well. As I would normally say, what hurted me, built me, healed me, and prevailed from all the type of hell that was sent to destroy me. I shall not be a victim of any past trauma. I laugh because that's a cope mechanism for me. Because it's really tough to talk about. However, if I take that moment to just breathe it out, laugh it out, or just something that can ease the nervous system, that is what I shall do. As I continue. I've learned a lot with being a fool. I would never be ashamed of that phase, that era in my life, because that's where my wisdom came from. My wisdom didn't come from me being, oh, I was always the intelligent one. No, I don't have that testimony. I was a fool in a lot of ways, in a lot of aspects, because little to nothing was passed down to me. I had to learn a lot on my own. From how to survive within my environment that I was born into, within an environment that chose me, I didn't choose it. I know a few spiritualists will say, you choose this life don't choose you. It's easy for you to say when you don't know the human design of that individual you speak of. It's important to learn what the human design is, because not everyone was put on this earth through choice. Many were called, few were chosen. And that goes beyond biblical. That can trace back to ancient times. The proof is in plain sight. You just have to yearn for it enough to seek it. That goes back to the food aspect, which I was dwelling on. When I say I knew little to nothing, I really did. If anyone to know of me, come across any teachers I had from high school on down, I'm quite sure a few of them will tell you how illiterate I was to them. Many have told me to my face. From the 5th grade teacher I had to the kindergarten teacher I had, to the, what's this, my senior year or my junior year. Between, it was definitely one of those teachers as well. Many have bear witness to my ignorance by default. When you were born in ignorance, you are bound by it until you find an awakening within that. And I'm grateful for that now. I'm grateful for that awakening. It started off as a burden, as a state of shock, because it was not familiarity for me. It wasn't clarity for me. Yet it still somehow made sense in a certain aspect. It was due to the relief that I felt that kept me within the curiosity of learning more about the awakening that I am tapped into still to this day and evolving within that. It just all comes to say, even when it appears to be nothing, there's still something that's happening for a reason. And I'm no longer bypassing the reason behind anything. That reason is the seasoning that adds on to the flavor of my identity. So I'm holding on to that gem, the inside wisdom that I've gained along the way. And a lot of people be thinking I'm joking when I say I evolved, and still be testing me, still be playing with my intelligence. They used to my ignorance. They preferred my ignorance because my ignorance is what kept them in a loop to misuse me and abuse me. Once I refused, everything went downhill from there. No one can put me in a trick bag, especially if I'm familiar with that trick bag. It would have to be something I'm not familiar with in order for you to try me. And even then, I shall prevail. Because it's the one that inhale and exhale through the veil of the vessel that I dwell in, that keeps me going. So all praise to AliYah for that. All of a sudden, there's activity going on outside of my environment that I'm at right now. It's usually not like this. Soon as I get on an episode, soon as I get to podcasting, here we go. But I shall keep going. It doesn't stop. Y'all gonna witness my transition. Right now, I'm in a space of transitioning. Where I am now, I know that's not where I'm gonna stay, due to my mind shifting. And what comes with that is my reality shifting as well. So I'm all things appreciative, because it simply does not have to be this way. I remember the times where things were worse, and that's what keeps me grounded and not complaining. I could, yet it is like, for what? When things were worse, things shall get better because I'm making things better first mentally, aka spiritually, because that's the equivalence. And I'm going to keep saying this is evidence as to why the fool in me evolved and no longer a doormat to any advantage, disadvantage to me, advantage to others. I often say, speaking of that, or ask myself rather, what do I love about me that most probably wouldn't like? And I would say it's my boundaries. It's definitely my boundaries. I love my boundaries, and those who mean me no good will find a problem within my boundaries because they have no room to step on it, to misuse it, to abuse it, because many has no access to me anymore, as they shouldn't. As they shouldn't at all. So I'm gonna start showing people better than I can tell them, as I've been doing. And it goes beyond patting myself on the back. I am grateful and celebrating the small wins, even if it's just me changing a perspective of mine or the way I move, the way I maneuver. In order to celebrate the big wins, the small ones have to be acknowledged. And for me, it starts with not being a fool anymore and celebrating being the evolved one, learning the lessons rather than the lessons just sitting there watching me making the same. I said the same, goodness gracious. The same mistake over and over again. Now, that'd be ironic if that's a word, Musain. It's the inner thoughts in me having its way in within my outer monologue. Those who get it, get it. Yeah. Um, right now, I'm just in awe of how far I've became, because though them past days can be tormenting, but I'm not allowing that to be so, because I'm looking at that now as a evidence that you can evolve, even if those around you choose not to, even if you don't have the influence or the motivation to do so. You have to have that feeling, that willpower, that nudge, something in you other than you. In my case, which is AliYah for me, the Almighty, the omnipresent one, always present within my time of need and overall, just not when I need, just to even breathe. It's an honor to be present within. So that's just a extension of my gratitude to even mention that. And I'm bracing myself for impact and just preparing myself, staying guarded, because when you evolve, I don't look at it as, oh, I'm a trophy now. I look at it as, oh, I'm even more of a target, because now people can either try to make an enemy out of me or try to block me for certain things because of my wisdom, because of my knowing, and treat me as if, oh, you think you better than us, so you ain't got to be around. So now I look at it as a way of creating my own path. That way I don't have to feel that I need to seek validation externally when it's within. It's the internal that matters to me, because that leads the way for anything that's external outside of me. And that is what I solely focus on in regards of remaining and sustaining the evolution within me, because it doesn't stop at a certain age, it doesn't stop at a certain moment, it doesn't stop at a certain phase. There's no finish line to evolution. That's eternal. So just because I evolved in one aspect doesn't mean I don't need to work on the next. I'm willing to learn and grow in every aspect, because I don't know it all. Probably never will. I know who does though, and that's the omnipresent one. That's the one that I stay connected with. That's the one that I'm always shouting out, because that's the one that has never left me to begin with. So I'm going to make mistakes publicly, privately. However, I'm going to learn from them. I'm not going to dwell in them and drown myself in it. I'm a fighter to the core. I don't know if it's the Aries stellium within me or the Capricorn stellium within me. However, I know that there's definitely tools that the Almighty has given me to keep going, even when I don't have reasons to. I'm telling you, being a fool was no fun to me. It could have been if I became bliss to it, if I found the joy within it. I don't find joy in everything, and I sure don't find it in misery. It's weird to say, I have witnessed people find joy in their misery by taunting others, by putting others through what they've been through because it makes them feel better. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't like how I feel to even witness it, let alone to partake in this, put myself in a position where I'm displaying that. I'm not willing. I'm not willing. And that's not to say, oh, I'm better than them, because that's not what I would do. No, what it is to say is that I'm an empath. I feel the effects of one's actions playing out. I feel the repercussions, even sometimes before the act is even done. And that alone is what keeps me from falling in dark paths. That keeps me from just having within me to feel. My feelings alone, my solar plex alone, is what keeps me sane. Without it, I probably would be a psychopath. I probably would have been those who do wrong. I'm just grateful that that's not who I am at my core. That's not who I am when I'm angry. And that's something I stay away from. Because one thing I refuse to do is to be the one to complain about something that I'm demonstrating. That's not it. That's not cool. That's not for me whatsoever. And this is all the things I've learned within being a fool. I've graduated from that. um, Many can continue to think I'm joking. Thinking minds lead to seeking ships. My actions, my actions, my actions. It's going to bypass all the doubts, all the tests, whatever games the real fools are willing to play. I have to stay on this course of evolving to remain the one that got away from thy foolish ways. Yet once again, it was many. It was many um, foolishness that played out within my life. And it's sad how some people who do know, who do have wisdom, who do have knowledge, they use it for bad. They use it for darkness. They tap into their dark energy and they seek out those who don't know. And I was one of those who got baited. And it was said that I had to learn from what I didn't know. I'm not going to be mad as I should at my parents, at just anyone that's older than me, any adult that should have been an influence rather than a horrible influence. I needed that good influence. Never had that, and it bothered me for a long time. However, I'm without excuse. I know what not to do because I know how I feel to do it. Therefore, I shouldn't carry out certain traits. I know the ins and outs now because I've survived enough to tell it. It goes beyond bettering myself for me. To better you is to better the collective in a certain degree. I can't help but be a solution to what's outside of me as well, because the power within me is enough to empower someone else. I wasn't built on selfishness, although I was born from it, although I came from the womb of it. I am living proof that you are not where you come from. Even if you are seed or hijacked within the DNA of another, who you are at your core will be mirrored and served back to you in undeniable ways. Undeniable indeed. That should be a day. The evolved fool. A day of celebration. I should mark this day as that day. No, I'm not gonna do that. Because I'm quite sure there's more for me to learn from. I'm quite sure I'm still a fool in another area that I will no longer be a fool in eventually. Because once a fool is not always a fool. Unless that's just who you are at your core. And you shall know who you are by your fruits. You shall. You are your first mirror. You will always have to face you in the beginning, middle, end of the day. And it's something I stand on daily. That solitude, that alone time reminds me of me well enough to know that I am my first priority. It's not that I can't, I won't put myself in a position where I feel like I need to tell others who to be when the first order of business is me. I just wouldn't do that. That's a portion of the reason why I don't carry out religious tactics. Which I'm just tagging it along within this conversation, obviously. To get back on track of no longer being a fool. I am ruled by the lessons that have been learned. And I shall pass them down. I'm not going to be stingy with that. I'm not going to rob anyone of a chance of evolving sooner than what I have. There's no sense of me saying coulda, woulda, shoulda, because everything happened divinely on divine time. And I'm just grateful that I'm aligning with that timing rather than fighting against it. I just want to share that with you all before I tap back into reading. I'm not the biggest fan of reading. However, when I'm called to do that, that is what I shall do. So I'm going to let y'all know about that. I'm not going to put a specific date on it because I'm learning to just put out the results rather than putting out the map, the blueprint. I wouldn't necessarily say the blueprint, but just premature plans shouldn't be put out into the universe until they are developed enough to have motion behind what's intended. So that's what I've been improving myself on, so I can no longer be the fool in that area either. Like I said prior, I'm just evolving in every aspect. I'm at a point where I can no longer afford to be a fool anyway. So when I say I evolved, hopefully you have a strong enough sight enough to see it, to feel it, and to hopefully experience it one day. Y'all willing. So on that note, I am signing out. AliYah I and Wada Haida Kadesh. to everyone that has tuned in.